Hi, I'm Kristen McGregor from Prince Edward Island, Canada's Food Island, and we're so excited to be joined by our dear friend, Patrick Murray, also known as Shucker Paddy, and we are live in New York City.
Live from New York, it's Shucker Day night.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's true. We are here at Flex Mussels in beautiful New York City, and guess what we have here? A fan favorite, Prince Edward Island mussels and oysters. All right, Shucker Paddy, let's take us through why do people here in New York love Pei oysters so much?
I think the thing about Pei oysters is that magical balance of salt and sweet, and it's always consistent. Now, even though there's different types of oysters and there's different regions within Prince Edward Island itself, the subtle differences are known if you have less on it. So less sauce, less lemon, and you understand it, and that's what I'm here to do, to walk people through the miroir of Prince Edward Island.
Ooh, miroir. Okay, well, let's hit it and let's walk us through.
Well, what we have here, we've got 4 Pei oysters, which is gorgeous. Cascapec Bay, we've got Colville Bay, we have Little Sharkies, and Le Petit Berchois, all of which are a little bit different, little subtle nuances between each one. The Little Sharkies are Flex's house oyster. They've been working with Atlantic Aqua Farms for years to produce not just the mussels for this house and the signature, but also this gorgeous little oyster coming out of rustical Prince Edward Island.
Amazing.
And then when we balance that off to show off the different regions, the different things, you have to have a Cascapec because of the miroir of that region and where Cascapec is. I find that the surrounding peat bog allows for this mineralness that comes through, and it's a very dark brown color on the outside shell. And that's part of the algae and the minerals that are in that water that gives it, I find, a bit more of an earthy, slightly mushroom note to it, as well as that salt and sweet. You can get some really cool balances on it. What I also like to go to the greens, like Johnny Flynn's oysters right here. You get a lovely green hue, if you can see that. Comparatively speaking, brown and green. When we talk about colors of oysters, it's from the shell on the outside. Generally, oyster on the inside should always be 50 shades of beige.
Okay, oh, I love that, 50 shades of beige. That's
easy now.
I know,
Easy
settle down, settle down.
Settle down. Yeah, but easy. Never mind, you can do that later, that's fine. But the green has always been intriguing for me. In France, they actually highlight it into a fin de clair vert. So they actually finish them into the green so that it gets that really cool miroir of ocean algae.
Yeah.
And so that green comes through in a Colville Bay oyster, fattens up, gets very plump, can get into that butteriness and velvetiness with a slight butter, lettuce, and sea green finish to it, which is really kind of cool. And these are super rare in PEI because Johnny Flynn is such a magical producer and lobster fisherman. Sometimes lobstering takes over for oystering, and then we only get them when they're perfect. Thanks, Johnny. You know how it goes.
Look how perfect they look.
The shell is fantastic, and it makes a dream to shuck when you have an oyster that's been crafted like this. All of these oysters are aquacultured oysters, and I find that you'll get a great sense of an easy shuck from the cultured ones. We do have a great proliferation of wild oysters in Prince Edward Island, the classic Malpecs, which I find are great as well. You should show those ones in my mind, because you can get that Mother Nature's crafted odd shape to it. And I think it's, instead of having the cookie cutter all the time, it's nice to have that difference that comes to it. So Little Sharkies, the Colville Bays, the Cascapec, and this is the newest one here called Le Petit Berchois, coming out of rustico as well, but this has got another dark algae finish to it. And they've crafted these to a lovely deep cup, rounded oyster, very easy opening, and this butteriness comes right through.
I love it.
It's absolutely gorgeous. Do you want to taste them, or should we taste them?
What
do you want to do?
Some live people here to taste
Do you want to
them.
taste them?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to come down here.
You're gonna have to come down
on
to
Shucker Day night, right here on weekends.
Let's go.
Want to
Let's
do
do
this.
it.
All right, we have somebody over here.
Yeah, exactly. You want to try one? That's fine, and I'll show you. I'll walk you through. You're gonna have the Cascapec right there. I'm gonna take the Johnny Flynn. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the way that I eat an oyster is make sure it's one loosened. I've already loosened it, but you can also make sure with your impeccably clean pinky if you want to, or if you have an oyster fork, poke it around, make sure it's loose. And then we are going to slide it in. This is the lip side. So you slide it in, and it's a 2-bite chew. You chew it up as well. And then so you slide in.
Oh, there we go. Get that chew.
And as you chew it up, breathe in through the mouth and you'll get that saltiness. I'm getting, the butter comes through in the middle on this one in the Johnny Flynn. You're going to be getting with the Cascapec a slight earthiness, whetstone, mushroom, driftwood maybe, but it's very subtle. And now this powerful sweetness is coming through on my end, and the saltiness diminishes. But it's a very long oyster on the palate as well, which I think is utterly fantastic. And the more that you do an oyster like this, slide it and chew it up, aerate, like a sommelier talks about wine, this is where we come up with this concept of what an oyster sommelier is. Describes where the oysters are grown, how they're grown, who grows them, the time of year, all that good stuff. We're whipping it up in the kitchen. There's blenders going on all over the place. We're just setting up for Shucker Day night here, and but that's okay.
It's great. It's all
and then we're going to do mussels as well. But if you do that more often, you taste it like that with less sauce. Sauce is great. To get saucy is fine. We love that. But try the first oyster to really get that balance on your palate to understand what you're tasting.
So naked oysters, you heard it here. Shucker Paddy.
You can keep your clothes on. Nobody needs to see this. Naughty Shucker. Sorry.
All right, let's also talk about these gorgeous.
We've got gorgeous Prince Edward Island mussels. We haven't cooked these ones up yet. It's still 8:30 in the morning type of thing, and the kitchen's just getting together. But the mussels are always great. Prince Edward Island's got that magical water that creates a lovely big fat plump gorgeous oyster. And this is what this place is founded on: Flex Mussels. They have mussels all the time. They do about 8 to 10, and they'll rotate different flavors that come through it. And the beautiful thing with mussels is that, yes, we do it in a restaurant, but anyone can cook it at home. Oh my gosh, it's the simplest thing to do. White wine, butter, maybe some herbs. If you're that way, garlic, shallots, and we're all happy. And then you just steam them all up and eat the whole thing. You dunk your bread in, you drink the bowl, you have a shower.
You're right. There's a reason why Prince Edward Island, Canada's Food Island supplies 80% of mussels in North America. It's just fantastic. Oh my gosh.
Beautiful things.
Okay, well, I'm so excited to cook those up a little later and sample those. Now, tell us a little bit more about, you also have a book, Shucker Paddy.
Well, it was like blah, blah, blah about oysters a little bit. I wrote a book a good number of years ago called The Oyster Companion. I think of it like a field guide. You can take it out into the field, the restaurant, or the ocean, the food store, and you can find out more about the different oysters. And from what I've been told, it reads the way I talk on the bar. This is what the readers have told me when they've experienced what it is to be in front of Shucker Paddy at the bar. Yeah. So it's just an easy read, and it's a good conversation of oceany treats.
Just wonderful. And also tell us a little bit more about your shuckering knife.
Oh, this little thing. Yeah, this is a goofy little knife. It is ergodynamically thought up. I have a degree in kinesiology, and after 5 years of university for a 4-year degree, I come out the other side as an oyster shucker. My parents were some happy.
I'm sure they
are now. They are now. But I came up with this concept because most oyster knives did not fit my hand. They're usually a lovely little ball of wood, which is great, which creates a nice little callus right about here. But I didn't get enough grip, so I used to start fashioning the blades at the oyster bar. And I fashioned the handle, and they'd shape the blade, and all the shuckers thought I would make a good knife. So I just started playing with it. And I had this concept from ergodynamics class, is you want to have something like an injection molded ski boot. Where am I going to find a mold for my hand? So I found epoxy putty. And it's a plumber's putty, and I just fashioned it with my hand, stuck in a blade, and it started developing from there.
Wow, let me just give that a feel there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
it fits in your hand the way it is with 2 axis lines. You've got A and B, creates a fulcrum between here and here. It's 135 degrees, and you can use literally 3 fingers of force to open up the oyster. Less force equals safer, and it won't slip in your hand. It just can't because of the angle, and it's just weird looking. And I like it.
It looks great. It looks awesome. So now, tell us a little bit more about. I hear there's also a project going on here that Flex Mussels is a part of here in New York, where they're helping to clean up the Hudson River.
The beautiful thing about oyster, and there's so many papers. One just came out last week comparing. We love beef. I love it. Pork, fish, love it all. But we compare the energy input, the water uptake, the land use, and on an environmental scale compared to oysters and bivalves. So mussels, clams, oysters, top 3 super sustainable seafoods. Why? Because they actually benefit the region they come from if you install an oyster farm. They are filter feeders. They're not bottom feeders, they're filter feeders.
Right.
Which means they filter, and they're persnickety. It's not like an air filter at home.
Yeah.
They will select what they're going to eat, and it's phytoplankton and zooplankton. So that clarifies the water. And what's going on here, what do you do with the shells afterwards?
I know, right?
The beautiful thing with this, what is this? This is a carbon sequester. It takes carbon to create the shell. And what do you do with this? If you burn it or throw it out, it's not great, especially if you burn it, but that releases the carbon back in the atmosphere. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to destroy it. We want to use it as much as possible. And since a number of years ago, during one of the hurricanes, we found that there's been a lot of erosion around New York because there used to be oyster beds hundreds of years ago, and they were so delicious we ate them all up. And so we want to reinstall and rebuild that shoreline so that when tidal swells come in with storms, as we've just passed one in PEI recently, these create reefs. So with the reef and the natural occurrence of the oyster creates this reef that helps alleviate the erosion with water on the shoreline. And then it also clarifies the water. It does 2 or 3 things. Now, the Billion Oyster Project collects the shells here in New York City. They take them to Governor's Island. They season them for a year because you want them to dry out. You don't want to put them in with cocktail sauce or whatever else is on the outside of it. You just let it go, and then they put them into gabbins, which is a box, and they sink them into different regions. And what happens then is other little baby oysters grow on them. They don't grow from them, they grow on them.
Right.
So as the oyster spats out into the water, it sinks when the oyster shell is big enough, it glues, and it likes to glue to its own substrate, which means oyster shell, or rocks or sticks, but best by far is oyster shell. So we do 2 things. We reduce the garbage impact that New York City or any city has with oyster shell, not putting it into the compost or garbage cycle, by taking it out, closing that cycle, putting it into the water where you can, where you're allowed to do this, and allows oysters to grow up and restructure that shoreline. So it's an amazing thing what Billion Oyster Project has been doing. And the water alone around here has been, over the past years that I've been watching, clarifying. Fish are coming back, whales are coming back, dolphins have been seen, seahorses, starfish. The environment is just regrowing from what it used to be 100 years ago, and it's just something that is so beneficial. We couldn't do anything better to our bodies, ourselves, by eating shellfish, because it's a high protein, low fat. Highest amount of zinc in any natural food source, oysters and mussels and clams. But then afterwards, we take this out of the system and put it back to where it's supposed to be. You can't do better by the planet than eating more oysters. We don't need you to replace your whole meal with it. Just 10%. Just shuck a little, here and there. That's all.
Yeah,
have
just
a little,
give a shuck a
have a
little
little,
bit, right?
have a little shell. Have a little, go that way. It works that way.
Oh, that's fantastic. I just love how PI oysters are being eaten and enjoyed here in New York, and that also that PI is helping clean up the waters here in the Hudson River, which is absolutely fantastic. So, if you want to learn more about Prince Edward Island, Canada's food island, world-renowned oysters, you can check out thesocialshell.com, where we have also a new oyster guide and map. If you want to learn more about our wonderful friend Shucker Paddy, how do they find out more about you?
Well, at shuckerpaddy.ca, at Shucker Paddy, Instagram, Linktree, everything comes under the brand Shucker Paddy now. So.
Awesome. And what about Flex Mussels?
Oh, Flex Mussels is all involved with this. At Flex Mussels in New York, there's 2 locations. We're here at the new place called the Upper East Side, which is a delicious area. I just come in once in a while for a visit, but flexmussels.com, you can check that out, and visit us anytime. If you need reservations, call me though.
Perfect. All right. So call your friend, your new friend, Shucker Paddy. Thank you so much for tuning in.
You want to sit at the bar.
You want to sit at the bar. You want to learn more. You want to pick his brain. And good friends don't let friends miss out. So share this. Comment below. Give some love. We're going out live from New York. Thanks for tuning in today, folks. Take care.
Ciao.